this morning, we're going to look at the Laal Collective, which is why Vicky is here, Vicky Maxfield in Wigton, because I'd never heard of the Laal Collective. Possibly some people here had heard of it, but I hadn't. And when I haven't heard anything, I just assume that nobody else has heard about these things. So I put myself out as a barometer of life quite often when it comes to football and, you know, all sorts of things. So I hadn't heard of the Laal Collective. And they've recently had some good news about receiving some money from the Cumbria Community Foundation. So Vicky might well mention that, and we've got some nice pictures to see about what the Laal Collective is all about. Great name for an organisation, the Laal Collective. And then we've also got the lovely Lorna Singleton with us as well, who is based there in Grizedale and is an amazing person in many ways. She makes beautiful spelt basketry. I went down to chat to her a couple of weeks ago for a podcast episode, which will be coming out next month. And she's also had some good news recently, and she's going to tell us a bit about that and also tell us what she's been up to. So it's going to be really nice to hear from Lorna a bit later on as well. So some really interesting stuff this morning to have a go at. But let's start with the Laal Collective, which is Vicky Maxfield. So Vicky, if you want to start sharing your screen when you're ready, and you've come off mute already, like a good meeting person does, and tell us what it is, what it's all about, where it came from, and tell us a bit about this good news as well. Over to you.
Okay, so before I start sharing my screen, because that's kind of about the project, so I'll just talk maybe a little bit about kind of who we are. So we are relatively new. We're about 2 years old. We're based in Wigton, and rather crazily, we set up during COVID, which was quite a challenge. So it's myself and Ali McCaw, who some people might know and might well have come across because she's been around for years. And we set up and we're based in Wigton. We have a little small studio in Wigton. And we are a not-for-profit organisation, so we're currently set up as a CIC, which comes with its own challenges as an arts organisation, but we are kind of committed to working with communities on projects that celebrate their identity and their sense of place. So we always find something about the communities that we're working in that we can celebrate with them. And we work very much in a collaborative and collective approach. So it's about working with the people, planning with the people that we're working with on the projects that we're developing. So it's a really exciting way of working because we never know what the outcome is going to be at the end. So that's kind of like who we are. We use puppetry, theatre, visual arts quite a lot. And as the name suggests, the Laal Collective, we are a collective. While myself, Ali, and Lizzie, who Lizzie's based over in Yorkshire, we're the directors of the company, but we very much work with a strong network of freelance artists. So we have visual artists that work with us, musicians, filmmakers. So I just thought I might talk a little bit about some of the projects that we've done in our 2 years. Is that okay? So if I start sharing now, and then that'll give you something to look at rather than just my face while I'm talking. So I'll share my screen. Okay, can you all see?
Yes, we can.
That? Yeah,
great.
Brilliant. Yeah. Okay, so this is a project that is in C-Scale School. So while we're based in Wigton, we tend to do a lot of work out in the West Coast. Quite a lot of West Coast schools. We've got quite a good relationship with a lot of schools out in the West Coast. But we work kind of across Cumbria. So last year, we did some projects down in Barrow and different things as well. But this project is based in C-Scale School. And it was a pilot project, and it was funded through the Spark programme. It's a Sellafield funding programme through Cumbria Community Foundation. And they gave us some money to start a pilot project, which was about how we create welcoming communities. Because C-Scale had noticed that the children returning to school after COVID had very much affected the way that they responded to each other. So welcoming the stranger was literally, so this is Bear that you can see here. And as you can see, Bear is not a teddy bear. He is very much a life-size bear. And he arrived at Seascale School one day and he was lost and he was confused and he didn't know where he'd come from. So Bear worked with the whole school. So we started in nursery reception year 1 and we worked our way right the way through up to year 6. And each class, each year group took on a chapter of Bear's story. And it was about them empathizing with somebody who was kind of new into a community, and kind of taking on the struggles that Bear might have gone through in his journey from leaving his home. So they worked with him in asking him questions, really empathetic questions, and some of the themes that came out from the children working were really complex themes. So this, sorry, I've got here. So this is, they created a book. Don't really see that, Welcome in the Stranger book. So this was created by the whole school and it's got their drawings and their working. And some of the themes in the story, we've got kind of child trafficking in there, we've got slavery in there, we've got kind of the small boat crossings, and there are all these themes that you would think that primary school children, that it's perhaps a little bit too grown up for them, but they're obviously picking these things up. So it's it was a really interesting project. And as a result of that project, we've just secured 3 years funding to roll out the project into 6 other schools out on the West Coast. So it's going to become a 3-year project that is also about teacher development as well. So we work very closely with the schools over 3 years. The first year is about us going in and running the project. The second year is about working in partnership with the teaching staff on how art projects can help to develop other skills within schools, and how it can be embedded into their curriculum. And then the third year is about the schools then leading on the project with additional support to us. So we're really fortunate that we've just been awarded that this week. So it's kind of too early to announce who it is that we've got it with, but we have got that. So that is going to be a big project that's going to roll out onto the West Coast. So that's really exciting. I'm going to just check how I can move my pictures on. Do I just there we go. So this was just as part of Welcoming the Stranger. They had a link with a school in Nepal. So Welcoming the Stranger has gone global. Bear is very well known in Nepal. He has had Zoom calls with Nepal. He's quite a advanced bear for his yeah. And so Nepal then have been creating stories around Bear as well. So he is starting to go global. So that was just a little sharing of that. So then we also do studio-based work. So this is a studio-based session. So this is our very small studio in Wigton. And as you can see, it fills up very quickly with a small amount of people in it. And this is a session on a Tuesday morning for families that homeschool their children. So they are coming out to our studio on a Tuesday morning, and we are developing a story and puppets with them, which will then be turned into a performance later on. So it's giving kind of skills to homeschooling parents around the art and the performance and things. So that's them all busy. They're creating a map there. And then on this one, they are developing their puppet heads. So this is, they've kind of sculpted out of clay and then paper mache and casting off. And you can see kind of their design drawings on the table in front of them. And then they've also had a little go at a bit of shadow puppetry in that project as well. So we're covering kind of all kind of grounds, and it's a really, really lovely group that come together. They're all very excited and just lovely. They kind of just really love that social aspect of the Tuesday morning. So that's one of our studio-based sessions. So this photograph, this was a project that we did last year called Sands of Time. And it worked with 7 schools in Maryport. So in a similar way that Welcoming the Stranger worked with Bear going around each class. In this one, we had, as you can see there, Hilda the honeycomb worm. So you probably don't know that Maryport has the best examples in the country of honeycomb worm reefs on Maryport Beach, and they're really important to they provide like a nursery bed to other sea creatures, so they're really important. But if we're not aware of them, it's very easy to destroy them. So to a lot of people, they just look like mounds of sand. So they kind of cling to the rock pools, and people trample them, and they get destroyed very quickly. But they're actually really important. So we did this project. So again, it was on the celebrating something that Maryport had, and that's these brilliant examples. And actually, as a result of these examples of honeycomb worms, the kind of bay, Allenby Bay, is a designated coastal area. It's like protected because of the result of these. So Hilda went into the 7 schools and she introduced herself, and the story, again, they created a story, but it was passed through the schools this time. So each school took on a chapter of the story, which was then turned into a shadow play that was filmed, and you can find that on our website. So if you go onto our website under the projects, you'll be able to watch the film of that. So that was that project. And then this is our other studio-based program, which runs on a Tuesday and a Friday in Wigton. And this is our Stories from the Kitchen Table program, which we've just received really gratefully received some funding from Cumbria Community Foundation for, just to help to support. It's for adults with learning disabilities. And it kind of does what it says on the tin, Stories from the Kitchen Table. We sit around our kitchen tables in our studio, and we share stories, and we create stories together, and we develop puppets for those stories, and that's going to go out for a performance. So it's Gertie's Garden is the performance that they're creating, and that is going to go out around local schools in Wigton in sort of June, July time this year. So the participants come and they've designed, created, made the puppets that you can see there. So if I the lady who sat in the pink jumper at the front, you can see her dragonfly puppet on her knee. So I'm just going to show you the next picture. So this is her printing. So she printed all her own fabric. She's then sewn into it, sculpted the head and everything. And then these are some of the designs for a young man who comes with us, and he has a really, really unique style of drawing. So his mobility is very limited. So what he does is he works really closely with Ali on his designs. And then, as you can see, Ali then takes the designs and turns them into a puppet. So you can see kind of on the puppet that Harvey's with there, that's been taken from his design, and Ali creates the puppets. So again, it has a really, really lovely feel to the sessions that are there. Yeah, so I'm going to stop sharing now. I don't know how long I've spoken for and whether I have waffled greatly.
Every photograph you just showed has color, has amazing color in it.
Yeah,
it's a bit like Henry's backdrop, because he's
very visual. We're very visual. I mean, even so, just gonna say, even when you look at kind of Welcoming the Stranger book, it is all color on the front of the book. Everything is incredibly visual in the way that we work.
Yeah, you're making the world a better place. So Vicky, are you and well, Tim asks, why is it called Laal?
So because Laal is a Cumbrian word for little. We took it's a word that gets spelt very differently. So some people spell it L, A-L, some spell it L-A, A-L, some spell it L-A-L, and we spelt it that way just because it aesthetically, I suppose, really, for a company name. So it means little and small, and that's kind of what we are. We're a small collective of artists that come together and work on projects together. So that's kind of where it came from.
As Chris has said, we've all learnt about honeycomb worms this morning. So are you both puppeteers then, you and Ali, Vicky?
No, so Ali's a puppeteer and maker. My background is theatre and performance, and then Lizzie, who is our other director, her background is kind of theatre company management. And then, like I said, we've got filmmakers who work with us, musicians who work with us, visual artists. So we always are on the lookout for artists who would be interested in coming and working with us. We work freelance. That's kind of how we work. We don't we don't employ everybody who works with us is freelance. And we're always on the lookout for anybody who might be interested in getting into working on community projects on a freelance thing. Please get in touch with us because we're always looking out for people.
Well, once we finish this little segment, Vicky, maybe you'd like to put your contact details into chat.
Absolutely.
I'm just gonna, I'm looking at the press release that I received a couple of weeks ago, which is what instigated this conversation. And it's always worth shouting out the organisations that give money to things like this. So we all know probably the Cumbria Community Foundation is like an umbrella charity clearinghouse. So the trusts that have helped you get this £5,000 from the Cumbria Community Foundation, the Joyce Wilkinson Trust Fund, the Gurney Charitable Trust Fund, and the CCL Secure Community Fund. So they're the ones that have actually given the money. And I just think it's really important to recognise organisations that are doing good stuff and helping organisations like yourselves do great stuff for the community.
Absolutely.
Does it feel like, if anyone's got a question, by the way, just raise your hand. Does it feel like there's a market for your work then, Vicky? Obviously, I guess it does. Yeah,
I mean, we actually are finding ourselves at a point now where we actually can't physically deliver everything that we're being approached by, which is it's an amazing position to be in, but then equally you feel really guilty for letting people down. But I think particularly schools are crying out for artists to go in and work with them on projects. And what we also do as an organisation is we can be that umbrella organisation for freelance artists, because if there are people that are, I know it's really difficult to apply for funding for some funding streams. So what we can do as a kind of an organisation is we can be that kind of umbrella organisation. If you've got a project that you wanted to apply for funding for, then please use us, because that's what we're about.
Okay. Jane, tell us just a little bit more about what you just popped into chat there. What's that?
That's Forced Entertainment, who are were very cutting edge about 30 years ago in contemporary theatre, and during lockdown they did tabletop Shakespeare using condiments from your kitchen, and it was just such a lovely idea. It's a really nice one that you can kind of use with lots of groups. So that's their complete works of Shakespeare from lockdown, but it's good to watch.
And last one for me, Vicky, I guess lockdown, provided you with some business in some ways, or off the back of lockdown, I suppose.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it was difficult. The reason the Laal Collective was set up during lockdown is because our careers were affected, obviously through it, as it probably was for most people. And so the kind of Laal Collective was kind of formed out of that. So it was challenging, but actually it has been a real catalyst for for us to be in a really fortunate position that we're in. And we're really proud that actually kind of coming out of lockdown, we're still here and we're surviving and going forward. So
that's great. No, that's great. Thank you so much for telling us about it, Vicky.
Thank you for inviting us. It's
pleasure. Put your contacts into chat. And stick around for the rest of the meeting.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Good luck. And
thank you.
May Wigton stay sunny and beautiful.
Thank you.
Right. Let's cross now to reflections from last week at the quarterly meeting that we had at Sunbeams, which is focused around one of the Arts Council of England's investment principles. I think I've got all that right, called dynamism. Anyone who applies for money to the Arts Council has to think what drives the Arts Council strategy. And the new strategy, which of course we probably all know is called Let's Create, which is a 10-year strategy, is focused on 4 principles. So we've tried to have these meetings, these last 4 face-to-face meetings we've had over the last 18 months or so, have been driven by one of those principles. And last week was the final one. It was dynamism. So Kate Parry, who is the chair of the Cumbria Arts and Culture Network, was there and said a few words. Kate, do you want to just pick up and reflect on last week for those that were there and for those that weren't there?
Yes, hello everybody, nice to see you all. It's a good day for a Zoom call, isn't it? And not having to travel. Hurrah for that. Yeah, so last week it was lovely to see all of those people who made it to the Sunbeams Music Trust. I've never been there before, and what an amazing place it is. It was just such a welcoming and friendly and warm, beautiful place. And when we walked through the door, they were playing Mozart's Flute and Harp concerto, the slow movement, and it was just sort of washed over you. And it was a lovely thing to arrive to, and that sort of set the tone beautifully for the day. So I'm just going to show you a few pictures for those of you who are not there. For those of you who were there, just bear with, because obviously it's not we can never get everybody all in one place at one time. There were 50 odd of us though, and so I'm really happy with the attendance. So here we are, that's Sunbeams Music Trust, a beautiful building built for the purpose of providing music, access to music for children and young people with disabilities and learning difficulties. So the garden is full of these amazing sculptures and pieces of musical instruments. So this is what we were talking about, dynamism, as Tom says. It's the fourth of the 4 investment principles, and it's the last one that we tackled because, frankly, it's the most difficult one to get your head around if anybody's ever tried. But I think actually we did make some progress in understanding it. So our particular question was this, how is the Cumbrian culture sector meeting the challenges of the cost of living crisis? So here is Tom, and here is Annie, who welcomed us and gave us an explanation and told us some really lovely stories about all the work they do. I mean, it kind of made me want to cry right at the beginning. It's just, what they do is just so purposeful and so fun and full of joy in spite of all the difficulties. It's just totally infectious. And Annie did really well not to talk for hours and hours and hours, frankly, because you could be forgiven for doing that. There's so much good work to talk about. So yeah, that was Annie setting the scene, and then I had to stand up and talk rather boringly about investment principles, but not for long, because this is Ife Akintunde, Dr. Ife Akintunde, who is the chair of the Sunbeams Music Trust, and he is a lawyer. He runs his own business. He's from Nigeria. As you can see, he is reading from Braille. He's blind. He just took us by storm, really, and delivered the most amazing opening keynote, if you like, just talking about what dynamism really meant, not what the Arts Council guidance says it means. The Arts Council guidance is all very well and fine, and it's necessary to help you get your head around it, but it was so refreshing to hear it put into somebody else's, his words, and it came from the heart, because he was really talking about how important vision is, how important it is to have a really, really strong vision for your organisation. And as Sunbeams Music Trust, they know what they're about, and they know what they want to achieve, and they never ever lose sight of that. I'm not, the irony of this is not lost, because clearly he can't see, but they have such a strong sense of what they are about that pulls them through all the difficulties. And that was really the message from him, that if you keep hold of your vision, you will you'll get there, you'll keep going, you'll be able to achieve what you want to do. Never lose sight of the vision for your organisation or for your own personal practice, for that matter. We then had a presentation from Katie Hale, who is a poet and a writer, and she's done something similar on one of our Friday calls, but this was an excellent example of how you can use data to understand what you do. And you don't have to be an organisation to do that. So this pie chart is a breakdown of what Katie earns and where that comes from and how she's had to adapt over the years, especially during COVID, and how each year is different for her in terms of where her money comes from. So it's really fascinating example of how not to pigeonhole people. You know, just because you're a creative doesn't mean to say that you can't use data to understand what you do and to help you do it better, which is frankly what dynamism is all about. It's about how you adapt to changing circumstances. So here is Miriam Randall, who is she's the chief exec and artistic director of Brewery Arts in Kendal. She did a really great, honest presentation about what it's like at the brewery at the moment and what it has been like to run the brewery over the last few years, what it's like to be a leader at the moment of a cultural organisation. And it was a very heartfelt, honest assessment for which we're really grateful. But also just, you know, really clear that they're doing amazing things at the brewery as usual. And here is our panel perched on the staging. From left to right, there is Kate Lynch, who's Director of Highlights Rural Touring, Jack McNeil, who's a clarinetist, freelance creative, Jane Bearsworth from Arts Council England, and Michael McGregor, who's the Director of Words with Grasmere. So we had a chat with them about what their organisations and what they as individuals have been having to do differently as a result of the cost of living crisis. One of the things that we talked about that was really interesting, I think, was how audiences are after it seemed to be after slightly less challenging experiences at the moment. Perhaps because of, you know, a reflection of the challenging times. And that being all very well, but what do you do about that as an artist who is producing, you know, honest, challenging work? And what do you do about it as an organisation? And how do you kind of take your audience on a journey to not just settle for entertainment all of the time, but to develop people's tastes and yet still run your organisation in a way that is viable? I think that is the summary of where we got to. We then, at the very end, had a treat from Dr. Akintunde, again, because he had told me that he was going to say grace. Well, I was a little bit unsure about that, because we were just about to have a lunch. He wanted to say grace. Anyway, of course, we let him. And it turned out that he wanted to sing Amazing Grace for us, which was frankly amazing. He sat down at the piano and sang Amazing Grace and played. And there was barely a dry eye in the house, frankly. It was quite an astonishing experience. So that was just a lovely way to finish what felt like a really positive and constructive session. I hope people agree. And obviously, if you don't, that's fine. Put your hand up and tell us why. Because obviously we're open to feedback and suggestions. And I would just really encourage you to try and come along to the next time if you can.
Thanks, Kate. Anyone who was there, if you've got any reflections, perhaps anything you learned or walked away or thought differently about as a result of a conversation with someone, because I think part of these face-to-face gatherings are just about having, I mean, I've picked up 3 or 4 messages from people who went and who just made network connections, which is great, because part of these things are just making space for people to be able to have a chat with other people and make time for that to happen. So that's always nice to see evidence of that happening. Verity, was this the first one that you'd been to? Sorry to put you on the spot. Have you been to one of those Was it any good for you?
That was my first in-person one, and yeah, I absolutely loved it. Almost dangerous and putting me on the spot, because I'll rattle on forever about how much I loved it. Yeah.
What did you think about Sunbeams as well?
Oh, it was amazing. When a few weeks ago, when you first brought it up in this meeting, I thought, oh my goodness, I have to go. Through the story of partly how it came to be, really interesting story of it being, was it Annie's nephew's sort of architectural.
Yeah, he was the architect, I think, yeah.
Yeah, story and taking 30 years to fundraise and bring it together, that yeah, you can so feel the spirit of the place and the effort and the energy that's gone into it, and continues to go in and out of it. It was fantastic. And also having the CACN meeting there, it was just so nice to meet lots of you in person and put
nice
faces
to meet you
and heights to your names.
I think I think it was a good example of just being determined and carrying on, and Sunbeams did that. Colin, I'm about to put you on the spot as well. So Colin has many hats, but one of the hats he wears is he's chair of the LEP, the Local Enterprise Partnership Cultural Panel. So he's a pretty serious guy as well as being a very nice man. But Colin, you were there as well. Was it, do you feel these meetings have their usage? Because it's quite an organisation, costs a bit of money, etc., etc.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those every day is a school day. I always go out there wanting to learn something every day, and I learned so much last Friday. And a massive, massive thank you to everybody who made it happen, because these things don't just happen. It takes a lot of work in advance to do it, and everybody who participated brought something else to it, and it was just great to be together. These Friday morning calls are fantastic, and I think they're a lifeline for many. But actually, there's nothing quite like getting in the room. Fabulous venue. And one of the people I brought along, and it was her first real connection with CACN, and I know, Tom, you've met her, is Veronica, who arrived from Ukraine last summer. And she felt immediately welcome. And she just loved it. There was lots of areas where Chris, who was also with her, and I had to explain what was going on. And she keeps saying, I'm sorry about my English. And I said, don't worry about your English. My Ukrainian's much worse. It doesn't exist. But it was just a wonderful occasion to bring people together, and there was real dynamism in that room. It was amazing people doing amazing things. So thank you.
Great, that's great to hear. Thank you, Colin, and thank you, Verity. All right, well, we'll do another something in about 3 or 4 months' time, somewhere in Cumbria. We might head south to the Barrow area, something like that. But yeah, thank you to those that attended. And as I said, some films of some of the speakers will be on the website quite soon for those that want to catch up or watch them again. All right, thank you. Let's talk spelt basketry now. I can't even say it because there aren't many people in the world that do spelt basketry. We are very privileged to have a couple of them, I think, in Cumbria. But Lorna will correct me if I'm wrong here. Lorna Singleton. For those of you that don't know Lorna, she's based at Grizedale Forest, and I went to see her. I'd not been to her workshop before. It's a beautiful little thing, and I'm going to show you a picture or two of it in a moment. And she is someone who is massively skilled in a very specialised way. And I always have time for people like that, because I always appreciate people that have seen a path to follow and are following it with passion and with energy and with expertise as well. Although I'm sure Lorna would be the first to say she's probably still learning all the time about what her techniques are. So she's also been very successful recently and got some recognition for her work. And I'm not going to say any more than that, because I'm going to let you, Lorna, talk to people about, in a probably slightly embarrassed way, about what it is you do, and then how you've been recognised recently. And but while you do that, I'm going to pull up a few slides, but don't let that stop you from starting to talk. It will probably fail and then it will work again, because I've having problems on my Zoom PowerPoints at the moment. But anyway, Lorna, the floor is yours.
All right, it's spelt with a K, Tom.
There you go. You see, I'm pretty amateurish at this sort of thing. So
the Cumbrians among us still know probably that a spelk is like a splinter, so you can get a spelk in your finger. Yeah, spelt basketry is critically endangered. There's sort of 2 kinds of materials. There's oak, which is very Cumbrian specific, and there's only 2 of us making those baskets in the world. And then there's hazel baskets, which have had a bit of a resurgence in recent years, and there's maybe half a dozen of us making them, so it's like not exactly loads of us, crowds of us. Right, what are on these pictures? Yeah, so because it's critically endangered, a large part of my work recently has been trying to work out how to get other people involved in it and make it not critically endangered. It's really tricky thing, because it takes a long time to learn how to do it and how to get the skills. Every part of the process is really technical and skilled, and the material's pretty rare as well, so it's quite kind of could be hard to let beginners like ruin material when they're learning. Plus having apprentices costs me quite a lot of money in a way, because they're not really productive, so it's involves a lot of time and investment from me to teach people. So it hasn't really worked out having apprentices, so I've been trying to work out how to do it a bit differently. And so I've come up with this new course, like a long-term course. So students come a week, well, 3 days every month, and learn different aspects of the basketry, how to source material, how to look after the woodlands, like a bit of ecology, a bit of history, and lots of different basketry patterns from Cumbria, from Wales, from Sweden, from Romania, from all over, like basketry patterns that I've researched over the last 13 years. Yes, it's also a spell as well. And so yeah, so we spent a lot of time last year putting together this program. It was quite a lot of work to put it together and work out what people needed to learn and organise venues and blah blah blah. And while I was doing that, I got asked to apply for the President's Award, which the Heritage Crafts Organisation run quite a lot of awards and grants, and they've always been very supportive of my work. In times of crisis, they're there on the phone to talk me down and tell me it is worth doing. And so they invited me to apply for this award, and so I did. And the idea was it was to give me time to program the course, because I was kind of running out of money, needing to actually make things to earn money.
Don't let me distract you, Lorna. I'm just going to stop sharing and resharing again so we can move through the pictures. Carry on. All
right. And you have put me off now. Yeah, so I applied for this President's Award last year, and I don't know how many people applied actually, but the panel shortlisted me. So there's 3 shortlisters. And then we had a few hiccups with the award ceremony because of the rail strikes last year. So in January, I went down to London, hung up my waterproofs for the day, and went down to Westminster Palace. Took my mum for a day out, and went to this awards ceremony, which was interesting. Mum was very embarrassing. Because there were some people from the telly, from the repair shop there. So mum kind of swooned a bit and had a bit of a teenager moment, like, don't embarrass my mum. And then she immediately embarrassed me by saying, I'm going to embarrass my daughter, and introduced herself, which was funny. Yeah, so I didn't get the first prize for the President's Award. Oh, I should say as well, so the president of the Heritage Crafts is the King. Well, he was Prince Charles then. So he chose the winner, and he didn't choose me, which is very disappointing.
Well, but don't hold it against him.
Yeah, next time. I thought we were mates, but never mind. But I got the runners-up prize. So I've got the second prize for the award, got £1,000 to put towards the programme for this course, which is actually already started by that point. So it's like back pay, which is quite nice. And I got this gong, as Tom's been calling it, which itself is, I think, is more beautifully crafted than anything I do. Which is, I don't know if you can see, it's in this beautiful box. Box is made from oak from Sandringham. And I'm trying to open it. got
I'll
this
stop
big
sharing so that
bronze.
you can hold it up and see how
Okay.
heavy and clunky and amazingly impressive it is.
Oh, can see? So it's this
What does it say on it?
It says the President's Award for Endangered Crafts, and then it's got my name engraved on it. And then on this back, it's got the Prince of Wales feathers, and it's like a bronze. It's absolute beast, bronze casted.
And so that is for people that are involved in crafts that are, in danger of going out of existence unless people carry on doing them, sort of thing.
Yeah. It was specifically for projects involved in like training up new people to make it less endangered. So the person that won it is a pargeter, does pargeting, which I had to look up. It's like decorative lime work on buildings.
A sort of word that Derek would know what the Greek origin of it was, probably.
Yeah, so I
And
think that's more.
what was it like to, what was it like to receive all of that and sort of get that recognition, I guess, as well?
Yeah, it's really, yeah, it was good. It was a part of me was a bit like, oh, I never want to go to London particularly, country house in the big city. Yeah, but it is nice to get that recognition, definitely. Yeah, and to realise that other people think it's important as well. So it's not just me on my own in the forest working away.
Why is it important?
Well, it's a massive part of our cultural heritage here, and baskets were used. These baskets particularly were used in every industry and domestic use at one time. It's the way we manage the woodland to get the baskets is really important for biodiversity. It creates a really rich habitat, which is also kind of endangered because not many people are managing woodlands in that way now. It's completely sustainable. It actually benefits nature rather than taking anything away. And so it's like a win-win for humans and nature. Yeah, many reasons why.
Why did you do it, Lorna? What was your journey into doing it?
I did an apprenticeship. What was my journey? So I did my degree was in anthropology and archaeology. So I've always been interested in how people live in connection to the land. And then I discovered coppicing, and there's an apprenticeship locally that I did, coppice apprenticeship. So I applied for that. And in the meantime, I went on a course with Owen, who's the other basket maker over near Coniston. And I just fell in love with it, really. It smells great. It feels great. I just love the whole process. I love being out in the woods and working in the woods and using my body. And then I love being in the workshop on my own and just getting engrossed in making the basket. And yeah, I mean, realistically, I probably should have given it up a long time ago. It's not a very lucrative business choice. It's bloody hard work. But yeah, but I can't. I just love it. And then the more I've got, the longer I've done it, the more I can't kind of give it up because it's on my shoulders now. If I give it up, that's it, it's gone. So I need to pass it on.
I was going to say, it's a massive responsibility. Haven't you just been recognised in some other way as well? Haven't you?
Yeah.
What happened?
So
Remind me.
That was January's trip, and then in just a couple of weeks ago in February, I was made a yeoman member of the Worshipful Company of Basket Makers, which was another fancy do. So I had to go to London to a banquet in the city of London and get sworn in as a member of the Worshipful Company, which is hilarious in some ways. So they have all these fancy big gowns and this like big woven phoenix on a stick. And
Are there photographs?
I'm really rubbish at taking photos. I don't know if you, but yeah.
You're a yeoman or you're a yeowoman?
Well, yeah, they need to update everything basically. But yeah, a yo person, and I got this silver basket brooch as well with a little sign of being a yeoman, which I think is it's mostly a kind of acknowledgement that you've been stubborn enough to carry on for long enough that they'll give you an award at some point. Yeah, it's given to sort of professionals who've been doing it for a bit of time.
I think it's fantastic to be recognised for a specialised skill like yours, and well deserved as well. Verity is just asking, I'm going to ask on Verity's behalf, where on earth can we get your stuff and see you doing your thing? So do you want to answer that?
Yeah, so in my studio in Grizedale, I've got a bit pretty sporadic opening times at the moment, but if you ever like send me a message, I only live 2 minutes away, so I can open up anytime for people. And my website, which I think Amy's put in the chat, has she?
She has.
At the moment, I'm concentrating a lot on teaching this course, so I've not been getting much making time recently, but hopefully that'll change as the year goes on and I settle into teaching a bit.
If anyone's got any questions for Lorna, then do shout. But I saw Lorna I bought this beautiful Christmas decoration.
Oh yeah.
Just when I saw Lorna and her work at Rydale, was it Rydale House? Is that what it was? I can't remember.
Yeah, Rydale Mount.
Rydale Mount. Yeah, they sort of do a Christmas fair, and it's just a really simple, beautiful thing that, of course, I would never even thought about it as a Christmas decoration, but actually, it's a really beautiful thing. And I put it up. I put it up for 2 Christmases now, and I intend to put this up for every Christmas that I'm alive. And it will remind me of the beautiful stuff that Lorna makes. So it's not just baskets that she makes, but the other thing that I really enjoyed seeing when I came down to see Lorna was the 100-year-old basket that was hanging on your wall, which was real evidence of how these baskets have real longevity and strength about them. They, we can bang on about baskets and people probably might start falling off the core, but actually I think it's a really interesting thing. And this was an amazing thing that you had created. And the 100-year-old one, did that come from someone that you bumped into, or how did that come to your possession?
Yeah, it was a lady at a show. I think it was maybe at Blackwell, and she's just said her husband's family farm had this swill from this basket from years ago, and it was probably about 100 years old. And did I want it? They didn't want it, so yeah, she gave it to me. So it's always nice to see the patterns. Different people in the past made the pattern slightly differently. I've got another one that's probably about the same age that I'm just repairing at the moment as well. So that's the other beauty of them, is they're repairable.
Right.
In the end, they're made of oak, so they're really durable. They last a long time.
Yeah.
They're really rather than, I know a lot of people think baskets are kind of a thing of the past and pretty nostalgic, but actually, in terms of thinking about climate crisis, I think they're really essential.
Yeah,
we should be using them more.
Well,
and they're beautiful. They're a lot prettier than a plastic bag or a trug.
They kind of sound nice as well when you sort of touch them and bang them. They just sound nice as well. They're really beautiful things. Thank you, Lorna. Thank you for sharing your story with us this morning and for showing us your plethora of awards, recent awards. Who knows what else is in the future for you? Let's make sure that King makes the right decision next time. I just commend, if you can track her down and she's there when you go down there, I really commend a visit to the Grizedale Art Trail is a really nice thing to do anyway. But her workshop and just the smell of it is really nice as well. It's a really nice thing to do, and they make nice coffee in a cafe at Grizedale. Lorna even bought me a coffee, which is very kind of her. So thank you very much, Lorna Singleton.
Thank you, Tom.
Congratulations again, and we salute you, because part of what this network is about is championing great stuff that goes on in Cumbria. And I think that's a really good example, along, of course, with the Laal Collective. It's a really good example of someone at the top of their game. Right, what time is it? It's 10:25. I'm just going to tell you about the podcast, which has just dropped this week. There's a really nice piece with Anne-Marie Quinn, who is Keswick-based, but living in Malawi most of the time now. She's a musician, and Tom Salmon, who will be familiar with lots of you on this call, has done a really nice chat with her. And there's a beautiful song, I think it's called Blue Sky Thinking, which is on that podcast as well. And also I've done a little chat with John Hegley, who is a poet, comedian, raconteur, who was in Carlisle a couple of months ago. He's had a book published by the Coldew Press, which Phil, of course, runs, Phil Hewitson. Phil, I'm just trying to remember The Scarcity of Biscuit. That's the name of the volume, isn't it, that John's written? A kind of poetry book about John Keats, where he did some research at John Keats' house in London a few years ago. Anyway, a little chat with John, and John also plays a nice song. So there's quite a lot of music in the podcast this month. So if you fancy that, have a listen to that. It's about 20 minutes long or so. Next week, we're going to catch up with Helping Hands, of which I can see Verity and Jay are on this call this morning. Helping Hands is the project, the county-wide project, which is getting a new diverse selection of people interested in volunteering across the arts and cultural sector in the county. So we're going to catch up and see how that is going. Speaking of data-driven projects, you know, what does success look like as far as Helping Hands is concerned? And also, we're going to hear from a woman whose surname I'm going to mispronounce, but it's something like Rachel Walderchak. She's actually head of HR at BAE Systems in Barrow, but she's on secondment to the LEP, the Local Enterprise Partnership at the moment. And before her, her predecessor, Mark Johnson, I think his name was on secondment from BAE Systems. And she's interested in helping get people to come and live and work in Cumbria. That's one of the projects she's doing for the LEP. And so she's interested in engaging with the network to see whether we can help her with some great examples of not necessarily just young people, but people who have made a life and a career in Cumbria, who perhaps aren't necessarily from Cumbria originally, or who have made conscious decisions to stay in Cumbria and pursue their vocation. So we're going to hear from Rachel, who's a really interesting woman, next week as well. So some stuff to look forward to there.